Oh, hello. Some games have reputations that speak for themselves, games that everyone can have an opinion on even if they've never played it, but there are some games that exist in some weird middle ground of that. I remember being in middle school when Sonic Forces came out, and from what people I knew said about it and the YouTubers I watched at the time, I had no clue what to think about the game. And now that I'm the YouTuber reviewing it, I still don't know what to fucking think.
Together we can show the world what we can do. You are next to me and I'm next to you. Push me on through until the battle's won. No one's gonna get something to us. Into each other we put our trust. Standing united after the fight is done.
Sonic Lost World was more of an experiment than an evolution of 3D Sonic, so naturally the next real game would continue the boost formula. Part of this game's concept was the idea that actually had been thrown around for years, letting you create one of the characters that you would play as. Alright, so we got some good ideas and a look at the story, and oh shit, we've got some familiar faces. Metal Sonic, Chaos, Shadow, and Zavok? And there's this new guy, his name is Infinite, and he has a pretty cool design. We would get a look at one of the levels and alright, things are looking pretty good. This game should be great as long as it has at least 2 years of development time. Ain't that a bitch? Yeah, Sonic Forces actually only had 1 year of active development, at least as far as I know. The rest of the time was spent making the engine. And if things just couldn't get any better, Classic Sonic is back, because why the hell not? Yeah, this game is linked to Mania. Classic Sonic gets warped into this game at the end of Mania by the Phantom Ruby. Alright, I'll try to forget about what I've heard of this game and just get started. I just booted up the game and would you look at that, it's already over. It was harder getting the game to start in the first place. The game opens up with Eggman talking menacingly, then we cut to Sonic running through Green Hill Zone, and unlike most fans, this doesn't really bother me. I obviously preferred having new levels, but Green Hill being here really isn't anything that I think is worth getting upset about. What is a little worrying though is how long it took until the game made me press a button besides forward, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Sonic pulls up to stop Eggman's attack on the city. But he's ambushed by a bunch of his old rogues and Zavok. Come on, man, it's been like a week. Sonic gets his ass kicked and he can't figure out the source of the newcomer's power. The new guy, Infinite, wins and Eggman takes over the entire world. A number of months later, everyone else forms a resistance where they try to push back against Eggman with the help of you. There's quite a few options when making your character, so naturally I picked the ones that spoke to my soul at the time and created my son Atom by Atom. His name is... The character that you create joins as a rookie around this time, and they find out that Sonic is alive and is being held on the Death Egg. Also while this is happening, Tails is trying to fix Omega when Chaos Zero jumps him and he just breaks down, needing to be saved by Classic Sonic who comes in from Mania. And you ready for something wild? I'm about to defend this scene. Keep in mind, I am giving this story a whole lot of benefit of the doubt that it definitely doesn't deserve, as I don't think anything I'm about to say was intended, but I think this is a completely reasonable reaction from Tails. First of all, he's a kid, which to be fair hasn't stopped him before, but let's also remember what happened not even that long ago. Tails watched Sonic not just lose, but he got his ass kicked by a bunch of his old foes. Tails saw his older brother figure get demolished with no hope of winning. Then, the guy who did it took over the world in a matter of months. So even though he could take on Chaos, I think it's completely reasonable for him to break down under the circumstances. Now, why didn't he fight the robots before Sonic showed up? The same reason he basically does nothing after this point, because they need Sonic to do it instead. Classic Sonic and Tails follow the trail to Eggman where they learn that he has a plan to wipe out the Resistance in 3 days. Wait, that sounds familiar. I think it's a little underappreciated how much this game calls back to the past. The classic Green Hill boss, the 3-day plot from Sonic Heroes, and not being able to hear shit over the music from Adventure.
Replicas. The problem is, they may not
originals.
Anyway, the Rookie helps jailbreak Sonic, and while he wasn't physically tortured, who knows what kind of horrors Eggman might have done to his mind. I mean, he's just violent, ready for a fight. Look at the ass kicking he gives to this Eva. He's throwing hands. What a homing attack. Sonic and the Rookie break out of the Death Egg. You have a gun, which basically begins a journey of attacks on Eggman's bases and trying to figure out exactly what we're up against. Sonic gets into a bout with Infinite again that leads nowhere. He confronts Shadow, who turns out to be a fake created by Infinite. Eventually we learn that he's powered by the Phantom Ruby, which creates a virtual reality that your mind thinks is real. They take out the power source and launch a full-scale attack on Eggman, who's just kind of chilling in a different city. But it turns out there's a second source of power for Infinite, and he sends Sonic and the Rookie into null space, which, living up to his name, is pretty much nothing as they manage to escape with little to no effort. Probably due to a Phantom Ruby prototype that the Rookie picks up after fighting Infinite, which is cool now that I think about it, but man, null space kind of just ends up being nothing, which again is living up to its name, but still. Without finding the second source as far as I can tell, they launch a full-scale assault on Eggman's base, where Infinite reveals that the 3-day plan was just to summon the sun to kill everyone on Earth. The Rookie uses the prototype Ruby to stop it, they beat up Infinite, and all three beat up Eggman. Classic Sonic fucks off to a better game, roll credits. I don't hate this story. I think the main thing that holds it back is that Eggman's takeover of the entire world is never really conveyed all that well, and he and Infinite never really feel like true threats. Sonic only loses at the start because he got jumped by 5 people. Every other time he fights one of the illusions he wins, and the one other time he fights Infinite where he does lose, he's fine almost completely after because Infinite isn't smart enough to finish anyone off. I'd say the power's getting to his head, but clearly not because he's certainly not smart. I liked seeing everyone rally together and take this seriously, but we don't really get to see the impact that the others are having. As far as we're shown, if Sonic, or the Avatar aren't there, then the mission fails, or just amounts to nothing. This would have been the perfect chance to have the other characters playable again to show their contribution to the resistance, but we just don't get that. The presentation isn't helped either by these non-cutscenes, and the dialogue not fully being there at times. I wouldn't say that the writing overall is bad, I found myself enjoying a few lines here and there, but sometimes I'm just taken out of it.
There's sand everywhere! Green Hill's looking a lot more like Sand Hill right now.
I would really prefer if you would be quiet.
But ultimately, I think the game kind of fails at the darker tone it was going for. We don't feel the effects of Sonic being missing, and once he's back, he pretty much never loses. I'm also surprised that the Chaos Emeralds weren't a plot point. We have a villain whose power we can't understand, and is strong enough to create unlimited copies of our strongest foes. Plan A should have been finding the jewels that contain the ultimate power, and going supersonic to beat Infinite. I feel like that almost writes itself. I will say that the aesthetic of the game is amazing though. I'd say it visually rivals Unleashed. Everything going on in the backgrounds, the lighting, I especially like the way the outside of Chemical Plant looks. This is how you bring back a stage in my opinion. It's familiar, but to me it still feels different, as at first when I was first playing the game, I didn't even recognize it as Chemical Plant because God knows I wasn't paying attention when they told me. If there's one thing I like about this game, it's looking at it. But the game itself, it's fine. Okay, modern Sonic plays like he did in Sonic Colors. I pick Colors because he has a double jump and you only get boost from enemies and Wisp capsules. There's also only 8 directional movement. Yeah, at first I thought this was a problem with my controller, but it's not. There's only 8 directional movement, which in the main levels isn't a huge problem considering it took me till a boss to notice it, but it was jarring as hell during those bosses to not be able to move freely. I don't get it. Why are we going backwards? Other than that, it's Boost Sonic just like every other time. The problem is the level design. So many of these levels have long stretches of basically nothing happening. Very few alternate paths, quick time events that I forgot in the game, and by the time levels start doing anything interesting, you're at the end. Every level is just way too short, especially to be having stretches where nothing happens or you're just mindlessly boosting through enemies. This isn't just the first level, this happens more than once. I like this one level that I genuinely thought could have been put in Gen Colors or Unleashed and would have only felt a little out of place. If you cut a level from those games at the time most Forces levels end, which is about a minute and 50 seconds, those levels still would have felt longer because there's more interesting and engaging stuff going on. For the Avatar, he uses a Wisp-On, this gun that lets you use wisps for attack. There's a nice variety to choose from. I tried to give each one at least a fair shot, but some had a bit more problems than others. Oh! I kinda stuck with the fire one since using it doesn't force you to move forward at all, and I like the small buffs that it gave. But I got the hover wisp towards the end, which I ended up liking quite a bit too. Yeah, they give you a few new ones at the end as if you're gonna go back and play the Avatar levels. Which I'm not. You have a grappling hook to homing attack and hook onto these grapple hook spots. And there are wisp capsules that let you use the Wisp-On special ability. The problem is you need to have the right one equipped, which I often didn't. And like Sonic's levels, there are a lot of straightaways with basically nothing to do but spam attack and kill everything in your path. I think the Avatar would have also benefited from a way to gain speed like the Sonics do. Modern Sonic has boost and classic Sonic has the drop dash, but if you want speed as the Avatar, too bad. Also, maybe this is because I picked the Wolf, but the jump felt iffy at times, especially towards the end. It basically commits to an arc that you have very little control over, and it feels like a lot of the gaps are made with a shorter jump in mind, so I would sometimes just over jump, and in general it just felt off. Classic Sonic, did my controller break? I'm pressing right, nothing's happening. I'm pretty good at Sonic games, and I know that when you press right, that's supposed to make you go right, so why isn't it working this time? You have to use the analog stick. This isn't bad as much as it just feels wrong. This is how I played games when I was a snot-nosed little shit. Why can't I use the D-pad for a strictly 2D character? Classic Sonic plays like what if Sonic 2 was bad. The levels are just kind of boring, Sonic doesn't carry momentum at all that well. Whenever you hit a speed pad, you get a few seconds of top speed, then you just kind of abruptly slow down. The jumps don't feel great either. It's kind of like they randomized the numbers that control the physics to get something close to what I like, but feels like shit. The drop dash doesn't save these levels, they just kind of aren't fun. Good thing you can die like 3 or 4 times to still get an S rank. Lastly, we have levels where Sonic and the Avatar team up. It's basically just what if Sonic had a Wisp-On or what if the Avatar had boost. These levels often include sections where you can double boost. Oh sorry, I meant you can watch it.
Yeah, that's how it's done. We've got unstoppable speed and timing. You just have to keep this up.
I drew Sonic.
Bingo.
They're just sections where you watch the game literally play itself. These should have been an ability that you had to somehow earn, like Chaos Control and Shadow the Hedgehog, where yeah, you're just skipping through the level, but you had to do something to get to that point. Lastly, there's Episode Shadow. What happens in Episode Shadow? Shadow kicks this guy, calls him a bitch, and then he's used for Eggman's test of the Phantom Rule where he becomes infinite. It's 3 levels long and they're presented out of order for some stupid reason. But to be fair, other than the jungle level, I like these levels a lot more than their counterparts in the main game. They're a bit harder, but about the same length and mostly 2D. But there were less boring parts, so I enjoyed it a bit more. There's also free Supersonic DLC. Yeah, instead of being the end goal, which would have made more sense, it's just a second download. It's fucking Supersonic, what do you want me to say? I'm not gonna sit here and act like this is some massive failure of a game. It's completely fine. I was having genuine fun throughout a lot of it, but like the levels, by the time the game itself starts getting interesting, it's over. Hell, the final Infinite fight is just a Metal Sonic boss fight again. But ultimately, Sonic Forces is an utterly forgettable experience. It has not even been 2 days since I finished the game, and yet I'm struggling to remember parts of it to write the script. And that's it. Until the Frontiers video, which I'm almost done writing, I swear. This will be the last video in the 3D Sonic Marathon, which started over a year ago. I mean, yeah, the marathon was extended because I was also working in God of War reviews, but man, I'm sick of these games. So sick of them that I'm streaming Sonic Adventure 1 on Twitch, trying to go for all of the emblems. That's twitch.tv/AJWise04. I stream Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So, if you're interested, be there. I do it with a couple of my buddies. They're pretty fun. I wish
Like,
Taylor Swift was
Taylor
more
Swift.
openly racist.
Taylor Swift. I wish she was fucking
Dog,
racist,
you don't.
man.
Do you have any idea how badly I want her to say the N-word?
Man.
I think that would go so hard, like in a song too.
Also on Mondays, I stream Kingdom Hearts. Hey Google. This motherfucker do not want to listen.
Just type it, man.
Hey Google, I'm playing the game. Fucking
You're winning. I'd love to play a game with you sometime.
shut. God damn it.
Google's so supportive.
So, I think it's only makes sense that I rank these games once and for all, so I don't have to think about any of them ever again. Except 3D Blast and Sonic R. I made that video so I could make one joke. And I'm not going to tell you which joke it is. So, at the bottom is, to the surprise of probably nobody, Sonic and the Secret Rings. I loathe this game. I hate so much of what this game is. I felt genuinely relieved when I had a good excuse to not finish it. Man, that game just sucked. Right above that is Sonic 06. It was broken, it was buggy, it was 12 hours of anger, frustration, and just generally feeling completely drained. But I beat it. And I can't say that about Secret Rings. Sonic 06 has the fundamentals. If it had more time to cook, it would have been a good game. There's nothing I find redeemable about Secret Rings, which is why 06 gets one place above it. A few steps up is Sonic Lost World. It's a fine enough game, I just didn't like it. I have no desire to ever play it again, simply because I just don't care. Now, I see why someone would like it, but my name ain't someone. Then above that is Sonic Forces. I could maybe see myself coming back to this one for a couple levels, but probably not. It feels like the first Boost game, not the fourth. And while that sucks and we know that it should be better because we've seen them do better with this formula 3 times before, it doesn't mean that there's nothing redeemable about this game or even enjoyable. Then I'd say Sonic Heroes. As frustrating as the game can be, I think when you're just playing it to pick up and play, maybe do just Team Sonic or Team Rose and not the other two, I think it's genuinely fun to just play through when you don't have that burden of needing to complete the game. Next up is Shadow the Hedgehog for similar reasons. Needing to get alternate endings to get the true ending is tedious, monotonous, and bullshit. But I did have fun playing it, and if you just run through the neutral route, or maybe like Hero or Dark 1, not the one that requires you to get the fucking 50 artificial chaoses, when you're just playing it to get from beginning to end, I think it's actually pretty fun. But not as fun as Sonic Colors, because Sonic Colors is not only fun, but it's also good. It's not my favorite Boost game, but I'd be damned if it wasn't some of the most fun I've had during this entire marathon. But getting into the big boys, Generations is easily the easiest to revisit when I want some good old-fashioned Boost Sonic, and maybe that's just because Sonic Unleashed isn't on PC, but that's besides the point. Generations is an amazing time that is just as good as everyone always said it was. But I'd say I'd like Adventure more. A rough transition to 3D is a very weird way to address this game considering how good it is and how well I think it's aged, assuming you're not playing DX, which is the most readily available version. But considering how long it is, the fact that I was 100% willing to replay the entire game because my dumbass accidentally deleted all of the footage and couldn't get it back should say a lot to how much I enjoy this game as a whole, not just Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. I was more than willing to go through the less savory parts of the game again, just because I think it's worth it. Then, my childhood Sonic game and a game where I didn't delete all of the footage of, Sonic Unleashed. I wouldn't be the Sonic fan I was today if I didn't play Sonic Unleashed as a kid. It's the game that defined my childhood to me. I wouldn't have bought all this bullshit if it wasn't for Sonic Unleashed. It is my favorite Boost game by far. I love you, Sonic Unleashed. But even nostalgia can't top Sonic Adventure 2, even though I'm also nostalgic for this game, but unlike some weaklings, age has only made me like the game more. As a kid, I don't like the Sonic and Shadow stages, but now as an adult, I actually like pretty much the entire game except Mad Space. But so much of what I loved about this entire marathon stems from Sonic Adventure 2. Even if so much of that is just Shadow the Hedgehog as a character, I really like looking at him. And that would wrap up the 3D Sonic Marathon if I was a fucking liar, which I am. There's still one more video, baby, and oh boy am I getting deja vu. So if you want to know what that last video is, subscribe to notifications on. And if you've been around for the last marathon, you can probably actually already guess what the next video would be. And thanks for sticking around that long. I really appreciate it. It's been well over a year since I've made that video. But I've got my work cut out for me for that one, so I should really get going to that. And Timothy, the avatar's name is Timothy.
I've been